Hey everybody, how you guys doing? Thank you for joining my live. Hey Tips World. Hey Vanessa Pretty V. I'm gonna let a couple more people come in. How you guys doing today? Just give me 1 second. I'm just let a couple more people come in and then I'm gonna start my live pretty soon. Can you hear me now, Vanessa? Put a 1 in the chat if you guys can hear me. Can you guys hear me? Put a 1 in the chat if you guys can hear me. Okay, good. Okay. Okay, you guys, thank you guys for coming in. As you guys can see, my title of my chat is Divorce, Trials, and Tribulations to Triumph. As you guys know, I just recently went through a divorce, so we're talking about divorce. I married my high school sweetheart. We was married for 27 years, and we end up getting divorced after 27 years. I also have one of my guest speakers on the other end, which her name is Selena. She's going to tell her testimony as well too. So I'm going to be inviting her into the room pretty soon. But like I said, we was married for 27 years. We have 3 kids together. I met him in high school, and we end up getting divorced. And we're going to talk about divorce trials and tribulations. So I'm going to invite my guest. She's going to introduce herself, and I'm going to invite her in. Selena, you can enter the studio if you like.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. How are you tonight? I am Lena Monique. I'm a beauty ambassador, an image consultant, a life coach, an influencer. I do have a full-time job and a career. I fight crime at night and bags, lines, and wrinkles by day. I'm a sister, a friend, and I'm God's favorite girl, and you should be too. So I am so excited. I'm grateful that my friend invited me on her live tonight, talking about divorce, the big D word. Nobody likes to talk about it, but we're going to talk about it today and how we're doing after the fact, how we're doing now.
Okay. Okay, Selena, if you let them know how long you were married.
I was married to my husband, ex-husband, soon to be ex-husband. My divorce is pending. It was 20 years. 20 years. So me and him were very young in our early 20s. Got married. Thought it was, the right thing to do in God's eyesight, and was married 20 years.
Okay, and what was the reason why you filed for divorce?
I filed for divorce for multiple reasons. There was infidelity in the marriage multiple times. And I wanted to be transparent. I told Delane that when I came on that I wanted to be transparent to the women because we all been through heartbreak, upsets, letdowns, and disappointments in life. So in that, there was infidelity in my marriage, in which that was the final straw. In which I said that I needed to choose myself over being in a marriage that being disrespected. There's disloyalty, um, and we're no longer serving one another. So at that point, it was time for me to exit the marriage. Did I want to stay in my marriage? Of course. No one wants to exit. There wasn't any abuse as far as physical abuse, but there is emotional abuse that can happen when you stay with someone when there's infidelity in the marriage. So at that point, I said it's best that I step away from the marriage. It took me a while to do that. I did have much prayer. I did go into prayer several times before making a decision. And I felt like God led me to, um, walk away from it in that time. So that's
Okay.
what I would say as far as in the divorce part of the lane.
Okay. The reason why I stepped away from my marriage was the same thing. It was infidelity. And it was unworkable. God told me that it was time. I knew it was time. It was unrepairable. We worked on it as much as we possibly can. We end up getting divorced and end up getting married again. And it was really taking a toll on me because I felt like I was a prisoner in my own home. I was a married single wife. I was married,
Mhm.
but I was single. He was always on the road. I was always at home taking care of the kids. So I was always by myself, and I had to really dig in myself and figure out, do I want to keep living like this, or do I want to move on? Because I had tried in a marriage so many times. I mean, everything I could possibly do in that marriage, I tried to do it. I fast, I prayed, I stood when I didn't want to stand. I kept on believing God for healing in my marriage, thinking that God
Mhm.
was going to heal my marriage. And it was really, I became a prisoner in my own house. And I had to really figure out, was I going to keep living like this? Because I loved him. I loved the grounds that he walked on. I mean, when he walked in the room, my eyes still lit up. So I did not want to get a divorce at all. And then I had three girls that I had to really dig deep. And no matter what I was going through, I had to stand for my three daughters.
So I have a question for you, Delane. Me being a single woman, I never had children or God still working in that area, you know. But being a mother, how did it affect your children? How do you feel that it affected your children um, in getting a divorce?
I think it affected them because they I think they really loved it their dad, and they really wanted us to keep that family unit. But then they seen that I wasn't being the mom that I could have been, because I was there, but I was hurting so much, so I wasn't really attentive to their feelings as much as I was going through so much. So, and me going through so much, I think I kind of dropped the ball with them, because I was trying to deal with my pain, and deal with facing the fact that I was going to get a divorce, and then facing the infidelity, even though I was there for my kids, whatever they needed me. But I feel that I was there, but I really wasn't there.
Okay.
Okay. And then I have a question for you, Selena, too. Was there any way that you could have kept your marriage together?
Great question. Ye- we tried again, just like you said before. We broke up for maybe a year, went our separate ways, and then came back into the marriage better than ever. Felt that our foundation was a little bit stronger. Um, and at that point, we decided that it was best to go our separate ways. So, in coming back to it, we said, let's give it our all. Let's give it our all. And like anybody else, nobody wants to go through divorce or, in the olden days, we were always taught, stick it out with your husband, make it work. But I have a found out idea about that now on the principles that there are reasons that you can leave a marriage if there's infidelity is one of them. But I would say to any woman, seek God first. Seek God in what He wants you to do. He may say for forbearance, go back to the marriage. He may deal with you in His own way. He may show you areas and concerns that you need to work on in the marriage. I'm not saying that I was perfect in the marriage, but I was faithful in the marriage. Okay. So God will tell you, He will reveal to you the things that you need to work on. So in that, He was working on both of us. Just at a certain point, it was. I said, well, you know what? We've done all that we can do. We no longer serve one another. So, in that, I felt that he was saying that it's time to let it go, let it go. So, at that point, there was no more that I can do. It's in God's hand. And now we're kind of like best of friends. We can talk to one another, and the communication is a lot stronger. So, in that, I think we may be better as friends than we were with lovers. So that's what I would say about that.
Well, I can say this, that I really, really tried to keep my marriage together because this was my high school sweetheart. This was the only man I know. Like I said, I had all three of my kids by him. And it was really hard for me because I was really trusting God in my marriage. I was really trusting God. And I mean, I was trusting him and trusting him to heal my marriage. So I was always praying, fasting for 5, 7 days, like really trying to hear God's voice and find out what God really wanted me to do in the marriage. But when we first filed for divorce, when we first went through divorce, I mean, I was there. I didn't want the divorce. I had no other choice. He wanted it. I had to stand and believe God because God didn't give me, he didn't give me to walk out my marriage. He told me to stand. So in the midst
Mhm,
of going back and forth the divorce court, I was really hurting. I was really going through. I just didn't understand. And when I was going to divorce court, going through divorce, he in the divorce court, my husband, he was winning. Everything that he asked the judge to grant, and knowing he was the one in the wrong, the judge was granting it to him. I mean, every time I would walk in that courtroom, I would be in total fear. Till today, I am in fear of going to any family divorce court due to the situation of what I was going through. I just didn't understand why God didn't heal my marriage, even though I was praying, even though I was surrendering, even though I know I was standing. I believed in the fiber of marriage because I don't believe in divorce unless they're infidelity. I was really trusting God. I was the one getting up early in the morning praying. I was the one when you come home from work praying. I was the one who was standing, asking God, to heal my marriage. And so, I was really didn't understand that. But in the midst of me going through that situation of going back and forth to court, I feel defeated. I feel so defeated. And everything that he asked for, the judge was granting it. So I remember
mhm,
when I was going down in the elevator one time, and this really nice looking black lady got in the elevator, me not knowing. From the time that we left the fourth floor till we got on the first floor, that lady retained me as a lawyer. She did it for a little bit of nothing. She did it for a little bit of nothing. So in the midst of that, going back to court, getting ready to finalize everything, knowing that this man is winning in court, and I was just sitting there as a shield. But when I walked into the courtroom with this woman, everything that I didn't even want, and everything, because I didn't want anything, I just wanted my marriage. The judge granted it to me. He granted me full custody of my kids. He granted me the divorce of my marriage, which I didn't ask for the divorce part, but he granted it to me. And also in the midst of that, he also told my husband about himself. I'm the one living upright. I'm the one serving God. And God, I'm believing that God is fighting my battles, but in the midst of it, I don't want a divorce. But I'm forced to have to go through this, knowing that I did not want a divorce. But in the midst
mhm,
of that, the lawyer that I attained a couple of months, like 6 months later. But I was the one standing praying. She told me, she said, Delane, I want you to know that your divorce did not go through. So we was still married. Even going through that divorce, we was still married. We still was married. But we did go our separate ways. But we did, it became a in and out relationship. He was there sometime, he wasn't. It became an in and out. He was home, he was gone. He was a truck driver, so he was always on the road. So I was always by myself with the kids working. I was also working too with the kids. So it was like I was a single mom, a single married mom.
mhm, mhm,
And so that really took a toll on me as a woman, because I was raising three kids, and it started really affecting my personality, how I deal with the public, how I deal with people, because I was always angry. I was angry because I didn't understand why. Why me, God?
mhm.
Why me? I didn't understand that part. And
Correct.
so how did you feel when you was going through it, like saying, you knew you was a woman of God, you knew you did not commit any infidelity, but you were standing for your husband? How did you feel in the midst of that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Selena?
Mm, good question. And that is funny that you asked that because I wrote down. Sometimes we don't understand why me. I've done everything that you call me. I'm the wife that you called me to be. I'm here. I'm there. I've done everything that you told me to do. And like you said, we stood in the marriage. Um, Trying to understand, Lord, what is my next move? But one thing that I can say is in the not understanding, he does speak to you. I did go on a fast for 2-3 days to hear from God for direction, for understanding. He sent me help. He sent me support. It's important to be around other women, or not a friend, just like Delane. I could call Delane because we were both going through it, to get support. um, so that I would have someone that I can talk to, confide in, and share things and not feel judged. Because sometimes we may feel judged by um, other people or people in the family, like you failed in your marriage.
Hold on for
You
one
know that.
second. Hold on for 1 second, Selena. One
Hmm.
hand, one hand, band man. Maybe this is not the chat for you. And if you could please just exit. Maybe this is not the chat for you. I'm not taking no questions on Roz. This is my chat. And if you want to find out about Roz, she has her own channel. You can go over there. Okay, you can continue, Selena.
No problem. But just in understanding, the question was about understanding, or what was the question about?
I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought too. I was,
It's okay.
I'm trying to look
We
at
just want
my.
to be very transparent. Tonight
Yeah.
is just about, is has any other woman in the chat went through a divorce, and how did they get through it? So we want to hear from you guys, you ladies as well. You know what I mean? Because we're here to encourage one another. Are we saying go get a divorce? No, we're saying seek God in all things. Seek God in all things. He can repair a marriage. He can bring a marriage back together. He can restore a marriage. In my marriage, he did say forbearance when I went into prayer. So I had to look up the word forbearance. What does it mean to be forbearance? Forbearance means to put something to the back of something. So let's say a loan in a house. If you take out a forbearance, they say we'll take that part of the loan and put it to the back of the actual loan. So in my marriage, when I went on a 3-day fast, God was telling me, put it on hold, try to work things out as you go. And I believe he was giving us a chance to see if we could work through the marriage. But at that time, my husband was still doing his own thing. He was living an outside life. So it was time for me to move forward. Love myself enough to say that I deserve better. And God loves me enough that he's going to send me his best. I wish him well. I would never say anything negative towards him. And I wish him well. That's all I could say about that particular part of it, Delane.
Yeah. But let me just say, Diamond D, thank you so much for coming into my chat. Also, let me just I need moderators. You are definitely right, Linda Best. I do need moderators. I do. Lawanda, how you doing today? Thank you, sweetheart, for coming into my chat. I appreciate it. Tips World, I think I did say thank you for being here. But as you guys know, as I was talking, I did end up marrying the same man again. A same man again. um why I did it, I have no clue why I did it, but I was, we got back to talking, became friends again, so I ended up marrying him again to go through the same thing that we went through the first divorce. But this time that old Delane was not that Delane. This Delane was totally different. Before I prepared to marry him, I was walking out the house, and I'll never forget God told me, do not marry him again. But against better judgment, I went ahead and married him again. And we only stayed married for 1 month, because that Delane that I was then was not the Delane that I am today. So I went down and filed. Immediately when that infidelity started, I ended up filing and saying, maybe this is not for me or you. And it seemed like that second time that we got married, he seemed like he fought the divorce of not getting the divorce. He fought it. But in my heart, I knew that once that red flag rendered its head again, I was not going to allow myself to go through the same thing. I had to dig deep in myself. And I didn't even, when I got married, it wasn't, I was head over the heels the first time I married him because he was my high school sweetheart. But this second time around, it was a different story. So I was able to stand in my truth, and I was able to go through the divorce the way that I should have went through it the first time. But it was a stronghold on my life to where I was so in love with him that God had to allow me to go through what I was going through to break that stronghold. And then the second
Mhm.
time I was able to see that I could stand on my 2 feet because I was basically a single mom anyway. So it wasn't no fear of being single no more because I raised my kids a single married woman. So it was no fear of me standing on my feet, being able to make it through that by myself, because my once I married him the second time, my kids was grown. So I didn't
Mhm.
have to worry about the kids the second time. And Selena, how was it not having no kids and going through it by yourself?
I would say not having children, going through the divorce, um, from hearing from what you had to do, it was a little less stressful. I'm not gonna say it was less stressful. It just I didn't have to have as much to put on, probably my paperwork and other things like that. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I would say as far as it's just less paperwork. We don't have to go through the actual trial of custody and different things like that. So that part of it, I can't answer because I don't have any children at this time.
No, I'm
you
talking
know.
about as far as going through it with doubt, as far as going through it. I know you don't have no kids, but as far as going through it by yourself. I know you had your mom and you had your
Okay.
family. And I know you was
I
going
like
through
I
it.
was Yeah, like I was saying earlier, just having the right support system. You don't want the negative Nancy's, you don't want the people that's judgmental, you don't want the people that's you're gonna have all that, but you need to be around other women that are uplifting, that is gonna encourage you, even through a hard time, even through a difficult time. You need to be around other women that are there to support you through the hardest season of your life. Because it was the hardest season of my life. I lost my sister, my dog ran away, and then my husband left. So, or I asked him to leave. So there were three major losses in my life at that time. You know what I mean? So it was a hard season for me, but God will give you a new season, and he will let you know what that season was about and the growth that you go through it. So I would just say that having the right support system, because you're going to have some days that you cry. You're going to have some days that you don't understand. Lord, why me? He says, why not you? I can, your life can be a testimony for someone else. How I'm able to deliver you, how I'm able to give you better than what you even asked for. So, in that, it's basically have the right support system. I went to my local Bible studies. I, attached myself to women that were flourishing in life that I wanted to be like. Not trying to say that I stuffed my problems, under the rug, but you still have to deal with it. But there were days I didn't want to get out of bed, and I didn't want to go to work, or I didn't want to be around people. So you're gonna have those days as well. So having the right people is important to go through the process, and having friends that you can confide in. Delane was one of my friends I could confide in because we were going through the same thing. And he will send someone that's kind of have a similar story than you, and that you're able to talk to one another, to help each other, and say it's not the end of the world. God is still in control. He still loves you. He showed me he loved me. So that's what I would say about that.
Okay.
I did have a question for you, Delane, when you were talking. What was your biggest fear? What was your biggest fear in getting the divorce?
Okay, hold on for 1 second, Selena.
Okay.
My biggest fear of getting divorced, I just felt that, I was going to be by myself, not knowing that I was already going to be by myself. And I feel like I failed my kids, like I couldn't keep my marriage together because I came from a home with two parents. I didn't
Mhm.
come from a divorced home, and as well as you came from a two-parent
Yes.
home.
Yes.
So that was kind of not growing up with my kid's dad, and that was really hard on me. Because I was trying to stand for my kids. I was really
Mhm.
trying to keep the family together, continue on with the marriage, even though I knew everything was going on. And in the midst of that, I was hold on for a sec. Hold on for a second.
So, in while she's stepped away for just a second, it's why do some women stay in a marriage for so long? You may be asking, 20 years, 20, Delane 27 years, I'm 20 years. And sometimes as women, we stay in a marriage that we know that may be coming to an end or God is leading us to end it. Which God is for marriage. I love marriage. I love to see people in love. So we're not saying to get the divorce or whatever. This is just our testimony, as women. But why do women sometimes stay in a marriage? Is it because of the kids? Is it because the honor that you have, the oath that you took in front of God, in which that was a big deal to me? Standing on my marriage vows. That's why I stayed in my marriage so long. And I didn't want to fail or be a failure. I felt like I failed when I got it. You're going to go through a divorce. So I'm just like Delane. You back, Delane?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm
Okay.
sorry. I have to get off the line because I have one of my uncles that's in the hospital, and I have to approve all the medical attention that he needs. So that was the doctor calling me. So I had to approve his medical condition that he can because he's on dialysis, and he needed be I needed to approve that just to let you guys know. So I had to talk to the doctor. But what was the question again, Selena? I'm sorry.
What was your biggest fear in becoming divorced or, coming out of the marriage? But you pretty much answered that question. So just
Yeah.
you didn't want to become a fail. You didn't feel like you
I just
failed in
didn't.
the marriage.
I just didn't want to become a failure to my kids, and I didn't want them to have to go through that. I always wanted to, stay in a two family home, and because it
Hmm.
really took a toll on my girls, because my girls were very close to their dad, and they went on the road with their dad, which I didn't travel with them, but they did go on the road with their dad a lot. So it's you're really trying to keep your marriage together, against all odds, and then but you're in a prison in your own body, trying to keep something together. You're going through all the hurt and pain and the suffering, trying to keep something together, and you're losing yourself in the midst of it. So, and I felt myself like slipping away. I felt myself like just going into depression, don't want to get up, like you saying, the depression part. It was
Hmm.
a toll, but I had to stay strong because I had kids. I had to stay strong
Hmm.
even though I didn't want to stay strong, even though it's some days I didn't even want to come out the house, but I had to because of my daughters. I had to. I
Hmm.
had to. I had to continue going to school functions. I had to continue going on to when their games, their sport events. I had to. I had to continue on going to work, even when I didn't even want to get up and go to work. I had to. It was some of the most hardest times in my life that you couldn't even pay me to go back through that because it was a stronghold. It was a stronghold when I grew up, even though my parents stood together against all odds, no matter what they was going through. And I wanted replicate the same thing in my life for my kids. And it
Hmm.
was hard.
Hmm. And sometimes we're just not in control of our story. We're not in control of it. It's God, you know what I mean? We're not in control of it. Sometimes it doesn't work out the way that we thought it was. And so we're in a season that we don't understand. Like we were saying earlier. Because I didn't understand. I just didn't understand it. I still, you still don't understand all of it. He doesn't reveal everything to you at one time. So I don't know. Is there any questions in the chat, Delane? I can't see the chat. Can't hear you, Delane. We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Okay, perfect. I just have Selena, hold on. I'm on the phone with the doctor. Just continue talking.
Okay. So let me see if there's any questions in the chat. Any questions, comments, concerns that you guys would like to talk about, or Delane can go back and answer some of your questions. But we are here we hope that we're healing and helping another sister that may be going through a hard time in divorce, that may be thinking about filing her paperwork. Where does she start? Um, Getting wise counsel from someone, maybe going into your local church or your church and asking for, you know, therapy, therapist or whatever, have a therapy session with a therapist or your pastors or local elders. So what can you do moving forward? And if you feel like that there's infidelity, there's abuse of any kind in the marriage, what can you do as a woman? We want to hear from you in the chat if you're going through something similar, or how you overcame if you did go through a divorce, separation. And we want to hear from women that may have
Well,
went through
I'm gonna
a separation of the divorce, and God was able to restore your marriage. So we want to keep it positive, but but
Selena.
in actuality,
Um,
we're talking about the separation part of it. Yes.
well, I'm gonna answer Linda Best. She said I ignored the red flags before and during my marriage too. So
Hmm.
you basically didn't want to, same thing I did. I didn't want to face reality. I didn't want to face the fact of what I was going through. I tried to ignore it, but it was messing with my mental. So I agree with you on that one too, Linda Best. Let me see, do we have any more comments in here? Anybody else um asking any questions? Okay, we got my reason was, hold on, Linda. Yeah, my reason was my vow, not realizing giving up or an out. That's basically me too. I just didn't want to give up. I wanted it because I still love that man. Like I said, my eyes lit up when he walked in the room. I just didn't want to face reality. I didn't want to face the flags, even though they was there. I didn't want to face them. I tried to do everything I possibly can to keep my marriage together. I don't know. Selena probably dropped down. And it was some other things that I definitely wanted to talk about too. Let me see this, Selena. Let me see. Hold on for a second. Let me see what happened to her. She dropped down into the chat. Let me see where she went. I think her phone took her out. But divorce is a really hard thing, I tell you. But I got back up on my feet, and I started my own business. I got back up on the horse, regardless of what I was going through. I had to fight through my pain and everything. But once that, like I said, once that second round of marriage, I was stronger then. I was more wiser then. I was more attentive to the signs, and I didn't care at that point. I really cared. I started caring about myself more because I lost myself in that marriage. And then I start caring about myself, because you can lose yourself in that and don't even care about yourself. But I had to basically pick myself back up and dust myself off. And I had to make sure these girls graduated from high school. I had to make sure that I was going to be okay. And I had to make sure, because in that process of me going through, I lost my mother too. So, like she said, she lost her sister. I was going through the loss of my mother, because my mother was my support. My mother was the one that kept me together, that, kept me sane, her and God. Because if it wasn't for God, believe me, I don't think I would be here today. And believe me, that was, like I said, that was one of the hardest possibly things I ever faced in my life. So I had to really reach deep, and really trust God through that whole process. But like I said, now getting into any other relationship now, when I see them signs And like I said, I only got enough time for one good relationship. I don't have a lot of time for a bunch of different relationships. So I have to really focus on them signs and really make sure that when I get into another relationship that I don't take them signs for a norm, that I really pay attention. When you're in a relationship, you got to really pay attention to them signs, because I don't want to go through what I went through with him. Even though right now we're probably the best of friends, we're probably more better friends than we was married than we are now. We are the best of friends right now. We because we have to, because we have three daughters. One's getting ready to get married. We have to be able to co-parent because our girls are older, and we have to make sure when we go to their graduations and stuff like that. So we're forced to make sure we get along when we're around them, which we do. We have a better relationship now, like I said, than we did. But it really, like I said, you really have to dig deep when you got kids, because it's not easy when you got kids. You have to really dig deep, and you need to pray, because even though I'm giving my story, this doesn't make it anybody else's story. This is my story, what I went through. Says God can heal any marriage. Don't think that God cannot heal marriages, because God can. He really can. I just, God knew I was not ready to let go. So he took me through all that. He took me through everything that I went through to be able to break them chains, because it was a stronghold. It was, I didn't want to let go. He had to break it in order for me to let go and to see the glory, to see God's glory. He had to. So that's what I'm saying. Don't think my situation is your situation. Trust God. Trust God through your process. Make sure that you hear God's voice and not nobody else's voice. Even though me and Selena was really good friends, we kind of helped each other through the process. But my ultimate relationship was God, because it didn't matter what nobody said. I needed to know that God had me. Because no matter, after you get through talking with your girlfriend and telling them your story, that was a comfort, but I needed a bigger comforter. I needed to know that God had me, because I had a lot of sleepless nights. I had a lot of lonely nights. I had a lot of crying. I had a lot of stuff going on, but I needed to know that God heard my cry, and I needed to know that He had me. Even though I felt like I was alone, I needed to know. I needed to know that God had me. So let me take some questions from somebody. If there, anybody want to read, let me read the chat and what's going on in the chat. Let me see. Let me get in here. You guys know I'm new at this, but I'm getting the hang of it. Jennifer says absolutely. Hey, Diamond D, I think I did say speak to you. And that, I don't know where my friend went. I think she dropped downstairs and I'm upstairs, because I had her come over because I've been having difficulty coming live. So I had to bring her over and make sure that, we get this thing right, because I did a tester earlier and I said, let me bring her over because I need her to tell her testimony, and both of us tell our testimony together. That's one of my really, really good friends. When I mean that's one of my really good friends, that girl is one of my best friends. I mean, I tell you, I've been knowing her for 20 years, and me and that girl has never, yet never, and she can put a one that has ever had an argument. We have disagreements, but we never had an argument. When I mean that, that's one of my good friends. Anything I ask her to do, she's right there for me, and the same as I am for her. When you got that good friend that you can lean on, because believe me and her both was leaning on each other. She had to bounce off me, I had to bounce off her, but we stood strong, and we stood what we knew what we was doing was right. We had to stand. Even though it was hard, even though you get weak, the flesh get weak, you still have to stand in your truth. I had to stand. As much as I didn't want to, I had to stand in my truth. Let me see, is there any more comments that I can Jennifer says, strong woman of God. Thank you, Jennifer. Let me see what else. Read some more of these comments. I think we did get one man banned out the chat. I hope we did get him out. And I do need to get moderators. I really do. I really do. And I just wanted to touch on something. I guess earlier this week has been a lot going on this week. And it was an older lady got on Brittany's chat,
and she was Brittany's godmother. I just want to tell people, my heart went out to that older lady. I mean, when it went out because I know how she feels, and it's like you want to just rescue a person. I just want you guys, when you guys are giving money to people on these chats, be aware because the enemy, God said that the enemy will come in and and turn your whole glory into a frown. So I just want you guys to know, Jesus said, watch out that you don't cast your pearls into swine because you will lose your treasure, and then to make matters worse, that person will turn against you. That's in the Bible. That's exactly what happened to that lady. The person she gave her money to, that person turned right on her. So be careful when you're giving your money out. And first of all, before we even give money to anybody, we need to pay our tithes first because that's where the blessing is in your tithes. So be careful on who you give your money to and pray about it because God will lead you what to do.
Can everybody still hear me? Because I'm seeing some ones or somebody saying that they can't hear me. So I want to make sure that everybody is still hearing me. Hold on for a second. I'm back up in the chat. Okay, I think everybody can still hear me. And thank you guys for tuning in. I truly do appreciate it, everybody, for tuning in. And Toy G, good evening, Seven Women Lives. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please hit the like button on your way out or your way coming back in. And please push the subscribe button. And just pray for me as I catch on to this live, doing lives. Please pray for me and keep me in your prayers. And God bless all you guys. And thank you guys for tuning in and have a blessed night.